Sis, you're welcome back to another interesting tutorial. So today we're going to be making an off-shoulder dress. Because of the environment that I am, people highly request for me to make off-shoulder. That's why I've not really been making tutorial on it as much as on other styles. So today we're going to be making an off-shoulder dress. I have here 4 yards of Ankara fabric, and I have my lining, machine zipper, and thread. So let's get into it. So leave about 3 inches or 4 before you start. Just roll it. So the next thing you want to do is to determine how off you want it. So I'm going to be offing mine by 5.5. So that 5.5, I'll just place it on this line like this. Then I'll measure down the length of the armhole. I want the armhole to be 8.5. Then I'll measure my nipple point. My nipple point is 11. Then my under bust, then my waist length with 1/2 inch allowance for the seam. Okay, and we half 5.5. The amount you half depends on what you want. You can half 3, 3.5, 4, 5, 5.5, 6, or 7. No matter what you are doing, let it not get to your armhole line. If not, that means all your breast will be opening. Okay, so if you don't want it to be too open, you can half 3, 3.5, 4, 5. Okay, so I'm offing mine by 5.5. So I'm going to measure down the armhole. This is the armhole, the nipple point. This is the nipple point, the under bust, and then the waist length with 1/2 inch seam allowance. So the next thing I'm going to do on the armhole line, the armhole line gives you your chest line, nipple, under bust, and this is the waistline. This is the place you're going to put your bust circumference. Okay, so your armhole line gives you your chest line where you're going to put your bust circumference. So I'm going to go ahead. I'll put my bust circumference. My bust circumference is 42 divided by 4. That will be 10.5. I'll put the 10.5. Then I'll come to the waistline. I'll put my waist circumference divided by 4. My waist circumference is 32. 32 divided by 4, that will be 8 inches. I'm going to put it here. And I'm going to connect. Come to the nipple point line. This is the nipple point line. You are going to put your nipple to nipple distance divided by 2 plus half. My nipple to nipple distance is 8 inches divided by 2, that will be 4, then plus half, that will be 4.5. I'm going to put 4.5. I'll put 4.5 here. Then I'm going to add 1/2 inch to this. I'll put it at the upper part. So 4.5 plus half, that will be 5. At this upper part, I'm going to put 5. Then come back to this nipple to nipple, right, and roll it all the way down, straight down. Then you connect it this way. Can you see it? Okay, so the next thing, you come to your under bust line. At this side of this line, I'm going to measure 1/2 inch. Then at the other side, I'm going to do 2 inches. This 2 inches depends on how big your bust is, or you can just use the difference between your bust circumference measurement and your waist circumference measurement. Okay, so my waist circumference, my bust circumference is 10.5, and my waist circumference here is 8 inches. If I subtract 8 from 10.5, that is 2.5. That's what's going to give you your dart. So my dart is 2.5. I already take half here and then 2 here. Okay, or you can just use this tool. It works almost every time if the person's breast is on the average. But if the person's breast is really big, you may need to go in more, like 2.5 here at this side. So just walk around it and pick what you are going to be using. Okay, so but the standard is just the difference between your bust circumference and your waist circumference. Here the bust circumference is 10.5 and here is 8 inches. Okay, so 10.5 minus 8 inches, that's 2.5. So that means that that intake is 2.5. Okay, all right, moving on. I'm going to come to this other side of this line. I'm going to measure 2.5, the same dart that I'm taking here. Okay, so that I can have that shape. So next, from here you connect it to the nipple point line and then straight to the waistline this way. Okay, then straight to the waistline from this other side, and then with your cuff ruler you're going to connect it back to the nipple point line like this. Can you see? Then next you do it this way. Can you see? Okay, so the next thing now, to replace all this dots. So come to your waistline, measure the distance of your dart. Mine is 2.5. I'm going to measure the 2.5 here. Then come to the armhole line, measure the dart and replace. Then put your seam allowance. I'm going to use 2.5. Then you connect together. So can you see? So the next thing now is to finish this upper area. So here I'm going to measure 1 inch, or measure 1 inch like this. Then I'll connect it to the chest line again. Can either have a slant or just put your ruler and get a nice smooth cuff. So can you see? Like I said, you can decide to make your dart to be wider than these 2 inches. You can just adjust it to your own taste and preference depending on how cupped you want this area to be. But for the minimum, on the average, it should not be less than the difference between your bust and the waist. Okay, or you can make it bigger depending on how busty your client is. All right, so now the next thing is for us to cut it out. But before we cut it out, you have to take measurements of this rounded shape and ensure that these other straight parts, they are equal. Okay, so I'm just going to measure. So here I have 13.5. So I'll just put the 13.5 on this line and trace it upwards, and anywhere it stops, I'll stop there like this. Then you're going to extend this line to this place like this. Can you see? If not, by the time you sew it, they will not be equal. All right, so now we are almost done. So at this lower part, at the side seam, you are going to come up by 1/2 inch and you blend it back to the dart leg and connect it back to your dart leg. All right, so we can go ahead now and cut this out. You see that I have not put the shape of the neckline. You put the shape of your neckline when you are done joining the panels together. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy. Fabric is folded into two, and then I folded this paper stay into four so that I can put it on both the Ankara and the so this is it. Next, don't forget to notch the under bust. So this is what I have now. So the next thing now is just to cut wording for this, or you can decide to use bracket. Okay, but I'm going to use wording. Okay, so the wording will start at the under bust. So your wording should stop 1 inch before this point. So stop like here. So just cut off the shape of the breasts here. I like to start with the curved part. Okay. The wording will start exactly at the under bust. Like I said, it should stop 1 inch before this upper part here. Okay, so this is for this side. I'm going to remove it, and I'm going to create a curve shape here like this. The width here is about 5.5 inches, depending on your bust radius. Okay, so you must cover your bust radius. So the width here is about 5.5 inches. So I'm going to just cut this one. So can you see? So this is the wording. So I'm going to fuse the wording on the lining. So this wording that is square like this, you need to just give it like a V shape so that even when you are trimming the neckline later on, it's not going to be too thick. Okay, so let me just reshape it first. So let's say I'm doing it like this. Let it come down very well like this so that it doesn't get into your neckline. From here to here is about 4 inches. So can you see? So I'll just measure 1 inch for the starting point line. And you are still going to minus that same 5.5 here. So you measure down the length, your waist length minus 1. My waist length is 17 minus 1, that will be 16. Then I'll add my half-inch allowance. Okay, then I'll also measure the length of my armhole, and I will extend these lines. First off, I'll go in here by 0.75 and I'll connect it back to the top this way. Then my zip allowance, I want my zip allowance to be 1.5 inch. So I'll measure 1.5 inch. And I'll also measure 1.5 inch here. Then I'll connect them together. So this is the zip allowance, okay? So on the chest line, this line, your armhole gives you your chest line. So on the chest line, I'll put the bust circumference divided by 4. My bust circumference is 42 divided by 4, that will be 10.5. Then I'll put my seam allowance of 2 inches. I'm not piecing the back, so that's why I use 2 inches. Okay. So here I'm going to put the waist circumference divided by 4. My waist circumference is 32 divided by 4, that will be 8 inches. Then 2 inches seam allowance, okay? So 1 inch dart. So connect it. So this is the actual measurement and this is the dart. So for the neck width, I'm going to do 5.5. I'll do 5.5. Then I'll connect it to the chest line this way. Okay. So the next thing now is to mark the position of the dart. Your nipple to nipple distance divided by 2 determines where your dart will be. So the nipple to nipple distance we're working with is 8 divided by 2, that will be 4. So measure the 4 and roll it upwards, and you stop 1 inch before you get to the armhole. This is the armhole line, so stop 1 inch before you get to that point, like this. Then I added 1 inch dart, right? So that means I'll have half on both sides of this line. Half inch, okay? So this is the dart position. All right, so next you're going to measure the neck depth for the back. So I'm going to be making the neck depth to be 2.5. If you don't want it to be too low, you can do 2, okay? So I'm putting neck at the back because the dart is not obstructing anything. Here is flat, there's no dart coming there. So straight away I put the neck width, okay? So the neck width now depends on how off you want it to be. If you really want your neck width to off very well, you can make the neck width to be wider. So, but this 5.5, between 5.5 is good, and on the average it works, okay? I even do 4 depending on how small your client is. These things, there are no rules. Just look at your client's stature, their body. That will determine what you are going to use, okay? So can you see? So I'm going to now use this to cut the Ankara. Watch your dart position and also your zip allowance. So I'm going to be cutting the strap that is on the sleeve. There's one strap that is there on the style. So this is folded into 4. So this is folded into 4, and I will also fold it over again like this. It's folded into 8 now. This upper part right here is unfold. So here at the upper part, I'm going to measure 4.5. This 4.5 is standard, but then you have to alter it for people that are plus size, that are very broad in shoulder. But for this 4.5 is always very perfect and good. But then you can do 5 for people that are really big, or 5.5. Okay, but on the average, this 4.5 works perfectly well at all times. So at the lower part here, I'll measure 5 inches. Then I'll slant it this way. I'll slant it this way, and I'll cut it. Then you see. So if I remove it, we'll have 2. So like I said, if you remove it, you'll have 2, 1 for each of the sleeve. Okay. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do here. So one side, let me remove it. So for one side, I'm just going to bend 1/2 inch in. Pay attention to the sleeve. Okay, so the width of this strap unfold, the width unfold is 2.5 inches. Put my fabric into 4 so that I can cut the inner part of this sleeve. So bring your strap, fold your strap back into 2 like this, overlap it like this with 1/2. Okay, then from the top here, you measure 5 inches. Measure 5 inches. Okay, like this. Then over here, you measure the length of your armhole with your seam allowance. Okay, armhole plus seam allowance. Then you connect it together like this. Have you seen the way I've done it? Because this strap is also part of this sleeve. Okay, it's because of the style of sleeve we are doing that is making us to have strap in it. If you don't want it to have any strap, like you are just going to draft your off shoulder sleeve directly, instead of using what I use here, so just use this 4.5 that we use when cutting this strap. Just measure that same 4.5 here. When you measure this same 4.5, bring back the back part of the sleeve, or bring back the back part of the bodice and place on it, and then you just trace out the shape that you have here. Just trace out the shape that you have here. Okay, trace out the shape of the armhole. All right, but now we are not doing that because of the type of sleeve that we are going. Okay, so this is what you have from the lower part. The total length that I have here, the total length here is exactly 11 inches. Okay, but then I'm going to bend here upwards by 3 inches. 3 inches. Okay, like this, exactly 3 inches. And I will measure my round sleeve. Round sleeve is 12.5 divided by 2. That will be 6.25. 6.25. And I'll add my seam allowance. Okay, then I'll connect it together like this. Then I'm going to cut it out. Can you see? Can you see? The reason why I bend this upward, you see it when we are sewing it, is very simple, but then we need to do it like that because we want here to be like a band later. So that's why I did it like that. So this is how it's looking now. So I'll open it. So I'll stitch here now. And I'll also do the same thing to the second one. Okay, so next, we are not done. We need to cut out the flare sleeve first. first folded into two, then so after that I'll fold it diagonally like this, like a triangle. Bring back the inner part of the sleeve like this. So if you want it to have pleats at the upper part, you are going to make sure you have some excess. You're going to make sure you have some excess, so you can bring it down a bit so that you can have some excess to pleat. But then from the style, you can see that it's the same thing. There is no excess anywhere. So just mark this shape. Have you seen it? So the length of this, so the length I have here is exactly 8 inches, and you will want it to be longer than this. So I'm going to make this one to be 10. 10. So go back to the tip of your triangle and rotate whatever thing you have here. This is 19 and a half, so I'll rotate 19 and a half. Okay. So this is the inner part of the sleeve. So like I said, you know, this is the wrong side of this dress. This is the wrong side. But then you see I folded it like this, meaning this part here now that is coming over like this is the good side, that is reversed to the wrong side. So you go and stitch here down, or you can just put your hemming gum if you don't want to stitch on it later, because it's not really necessary, because we are still going to be making another stitch here. Okay, so just look at what I'm going to do. Okay, so for the sleeve now, so no need to go and stitch it. I've already put hemming gum. So bring the flea. This is the flea, right? Take one side of the flea. This fabric is damaged. So the right side of this flea will be facing this wrong side, and just at this edge, like from where the we overlap this like this, so come down here like ½ inch, and then you are going to pleat the whole down part of the flea to this place. But then there's a way that my style is, that one. So for that one, the pleat is not everywhere. So from the inside here, measure about 4 inches in. From here also measure 4 inch. Let's just do that, because the flare is not everywhere. The plate is not everywhere. So 4 inches, and then another 4 inches, so that you sew it straight till you get here. Then take the other edge, sew it straight till you get here. Then you place this excess around this place. From here to here, that's where you place the excess. Then when you are done, you flip it over to this place like this, and then you stitch them out together. Okay, before you now come and attach your band. All right, if you want exactly that's it. Okay, so for the down part, it's just going to be a rectangle. I mean, the lower part, you need minimum of times 2 of your waist circumference Depending on how full you want, you can do times 3 of your waist circumference, you can do times 2.5, but average is times 2.5, okay? But it shouldn't be less than times 2 if you're managing fabric. So my waist circumference is 32. So let's say I'm doing times 2.5. So I'll just multiply the 32 by 2.5. So that's going to be the width of the thing I'm going to pleat around the waist circumference. Then for the length, you minus the waist length from the total gown length. My total gown length is 60, but let me just do 61. 61 minus 17, that will be 44. But you know you have to add your seam allowance that you use and bend the down part and also to join it to the upper part, okay? So I'm just going to use the total width of this my Ankara here. So the total length here is 47, so that it's going to be full. And if it's too long, I'll cut it from the down. All right, so this is what I have. This is what I'm going to be pleating all around the waist circumference, okay? But there is slit in front. Do I really want that slit in front? A slit in the center front. I don't know. I'm not sure if I want slit in front. Okay. Okay. So see it now. It's beautiful. It's comfy. You know, it's just right. Perfect. Okay. If you like, you can bring it down. Like you can bring it down below your shoulder. If you like, you can just push it to your shoulder tip. Just your shoulder tip. And if you also like, you can take it all the way to your shoulder. Right there. Up there like this. Can you see? Can you see? Just like this.